Oh, alright, good morning, everyone. Alright, cool. This is giving me much more light. The reason why I'm making this video is because I just watched Jacob Rees-Mogg giving his vote of no confidence with regard to Theresa May as Prime Minister, and this is a response to her proposed Brexit deal, I believe, which doesn't necessarily qualify in regard to what was defined as as Brexit, as it were. So I'm just going to read out something that I have here. It's Jacob Rees-Mogg basically commenting on the idea that this is not a coup per se, but rather coup is the wrong word, as he is following legitimate means to try and oust the prime minister. Uh, Directly quoted, he said, "What has happened today is not Brexit." He continues, "The law to leave has already been passed. The Withdrawal Act is through. But what we need is a leader to say to the European Union, it is impossible to divide up the United Kingdom. It is impossible to agree to a situation where we have a perpetual customs union. It is impossible to pay up to £39 billion of taxpayers' money for a few promises which was meant to be £39 billion for an implementation of a deal. And it is impossible for us to allow the continuing jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. The problem is that these negotiations have given way on all the key points." And so, what Jacob Rees-Mogg is saying here is exactly correct. Um, Brexit was just democratically decided on by the public, and it's a given that a Remainer who is going to be delivering Brexit is going to be making compromises, but it should be compromises still in the tinge of leaving and not in the tinge of sort of remaining. So I think that it would be important for other people to follow suit, to demonstrate that Theresa May's proposal is one that is not of a democratic nature, and rather she isn't working in the interests of the British people, but is, rather sabotaging a fantastic opportunity for Britain to trade by the World Trade Organization's standards, to behave as a sort of third trading partner. Um, Honestly, it's going to create a lot of opportunity for the working class in Britain. An opportunity for Britain to revivify its national identity and solidify its own communities, and have a chance on its own, but also to have a government that is more tightly sort of accountable to the public, and especially being out of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, because we frankly don't agree on matters of free speech. We really have to protect certain elements of our law, and free speech has been waned upon for a very long time with things like the Communications Act. But what's happening right now in the UK is not the correct approach. And I think that the police and the institutions are merely pandering to the millennial youthful narrative, because they can quickly overturn the country if they so wish. We saw that with the riots in Tottenham. And I remember being there as well and seeing how overwhelmed the police were, and how overwhelmed all these institutions were. And so, yeah, the progressive elites can't win in this case, because it will spell a direct um, refutation to our concept of democracy in our country, and that is very important that we retain that. We don't politically divide ourselves, because we need to learn to play nice if we're going to produce some good candidates. Otherwise, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just vote for Gerard Batten. Let's just go UKIP. Everyone. They're a British populist party. They're classical liberals. They believe in free speech entirely. They are secularists. They're not messing around the conversation with regard to Islam in Britain. Um, they're a clearly centrist party, who don't accept the far right, and they rebuke the far left. And it's Batten honestly needs to be talking to Jacob Rees-Mogg at the moment, because Batten, I think, is a great alternative, and the more UKIP that we see, the better represented the country will be, in my opinion. But yeah, that's if everyone can get off of their bourgeois asses and realise that there is a multi-ethnic British identity, and it's not something that is completely laced with colonialism and evil and sort of notions of the far right. We're not. Just don't let the internet age fool you. We have a very interesting and distinct background, and if you grew up in East London in the working class like I did, and you grew up on a street with people of all sorts of national identities, you could take faith in the fact that you could occupy a number of places. You could ask someone where they were from and take interest in the movements of your countries and nations. But there was a historical sense to being a Brit, and having a background from elsewhere, and that's not something to be squandered, just because of a dark element of America's history, let's say. We're a little more culturally diverse than that, and we should appreciate some of the great traditions that we take for granted today, namely free speech. But hey, there was a couple tangents there. But yeah, in short, listen to Jacob Rees-Mogg. I don't understand how his attitude towards homosexuality, given that he is an openly Christian or Catholic person, I don't understand why his attitude towards that is so offensive to you that you can completely overlook any other utterance of his as though everything he says is born out of evil. The world is a little more interesting and complicated than that, and you need to frankly grow a pair. But yeah, Brexit is go. Come on, UKIP.